Breaking news. Trump the Chump says his National Guard is on its way to Chicago this week for their next stop on his photo op tour to make himself seem tough, even though we all know he's a draft-dodging coward. Meanwhile, this photo op is costing us taxpayers millions of dollars a day, while funding for food, gas, and rent dwindle, so that soldiers can go to the best parts of Chicago and post up on Michigan Avenue, probably in front of the Bean. The people of Chicago are, of course, unimpressed, most laughing at the thought or annoyed by what they assume will be more traffic downtown. And Chicago Mayor Brandon issued an executive order prohibiting the corrupt CPD from aiding the National Guard or ICE in their illegal and racist endeavors. I, for one, don't think they're coming, just more empty threats from an empty suit. But if they do, I'm sure we'll get a good laugh out of it. Now, this next story is for those of you who think that this fascist regime that's currently in power isn't going to directly affect your life. Well, the stats show a different result. The stats are in, and Trump the Chump's policies are destroying the middle class. A society without a middle class is on its way to what would be our second Great Depression for this country. Most of us are too young to remember what the Great Depression was like, but from the history books we know, people starved to death, there were no jobs, crime was at an all-time high, and families were split up. And it was worse for our Black ancestors who weren't given their fair share to begin with, even though they had just fought in a war for this country that hated them. This current attack on the middle class is especially targeted towards Black Americans, which should be no surprise. It's right out of the playbook of Project 2025 that nobody read before they voted. That's also why you're seeing hundreds of thousands of Black women being laid off. That's a part of the overall strategy to kick Black people out of the middle class. I really hope you're picking up what I'm putting down today, y'all. Over the past few decades, U.S. economic policy has increasingly favored the wealthy, leaving the middle class, particularly Black Americans, behind. Under Trump the Chump's administration, many of these trends continue, with key policies furthering widening the gap between the rich and everyone else. American workers have also become nearly 60% more productive, but real wages have barely moved. So you're working harder for less money, even though it costs more to live. The wealth created has largely gone to the top. Incomes for the top 1% grew 160%, while the middle class's share of the national income fell from 62% in 1970 to just about 43% in 2022. Now let's talk about the impact on the Black middle class, which is the real target of this racist, fascist regime. Black Americans who already face systemic barriers to wealth and opportunity have been hit even harder. Generations of discriminatory policies in housing, education, and employment have left the Black middle class more vulnerable to economic shocks. The Trump the Chump era policies failed to address these systemic issues. In fact, cuts to regulations and safety nets paired with a lack of targeted support for underserved communities left many Black families further exposed. Rising housing costs, stagnant wages, and lack of access to affordable child care and health care all hit Black households disproportionately to everyone else. Black workers are overrepresented in essential and low-wage jobs, which typically come with fewer protections and benefits by design. And without serious policy intervention, the fragile gains of the Black middle class, home ownership, higher education, small business growth remain a constant risk for us. Experts argue that rebuilding the middle class, especially for Black Americans, requires bold, inclusive policy choices, none that you will receive from Trump the Chump. But it would include universal health care to end the link between employment and medical coverage, subsidized child care to boost workforce participation, especially among women, affordable housing initiatives to combat investor-driven price inflation, green infrastructure investment to create stable, well-paying union jobs, targeted racial equity policies to close the long-standing wealth and wage gaps due to racism. And the only way we're going to see those changes in our lifetime is to go get them ourselves and stop hoping and wishing that these ridiculously uneducated, hateful people wake up with humanity one day. That's not going to happen. They have convinced themselves that they should be at the top. And the only way that they can be happy is if people are beneath them. That is why the world is all messed up, because a group of people can't fathom living in a world where there is equality. The facts remain. Trump the chump and his administration's policies are accelerating the end of the middle class. Reversing this trend requires a shift away from everything that Project 2025 stands for. And yet it is in the driver's seat. It is real. Everything in there is playing out every day. If this doesn't push you to get involved in your community, if this doesn't push you to read some more books, to self-educate yourself, to get ready for what is coming, if this doesn't push you to gather and unite with your community, with your Black community, if this doesn't push you to take more interest in voting so that you can have actual representatives speaking for you and the needs of your community, then nothing will. Because none of this is hypothetical anymore. None of this is a maybe. It's a right now. It's legit. It is for real. It is not pretend. This is happening. You are losing everything. And the only way out of it is together. Black unity. As always, I love you, Black man. I love you, Black woman. Knowledge is power. Power to the people.
Say it loud.